This is Ryan with GameRoomSolutions.com. If you've ever tried to set up virtual pinball to complete pain on the software side, this is the ultimate cheat sheet that's just going to get you right where you need to be to have over 500 tables working fast. This video will show you how to set everything up for a cabinet, but this could work for a desktop as well. There's a link in the description to our tabletop, mid-size, and full-size virtual pinball cabinets. Go together quickly with cam locks if you want to get a full cabinet. We're going to walk through this step by step. All the links to everything you need to download are in the description, and let's get started. Alright, so let's talk through some basic descriptions here just so you kind of have a high level of what's going on. So Visual Pinball X is what we're going to install. That's essentially the engine that's going to run everything. Pinup player. That's a player that once you start Visual Pinball, it can run through the player essentially, and that's what can throw all the graphics nicely to the different screens. Pup-packs, that is the movie clips and different things like that that integrate into the table, so we'll show that. And then Pinup Popper is the front end. That's essentially, so instead of just going to Visual Pinball X like a nerd, right, and then selecting a table and it comes up, the Pinup Popper is essentially a front end that looks really polished, really nice. Players can go through just on your pinball cabinet or whatever, select what table they want, and it does everything for them. So those are the different things we're going to get set up here. So a couple shout outs here. I'm not affiliated with any of these guys, but just wanted to say this is what helped me tremendously. First is Terry Red. He's kind of the oracle of the visual pinball. If you look out there, he goes into deep detail on all of this stuff. So if you look at like his visual pinball essentials video, it's essentially what we're doing here, but I'm just skipping to what you need to know, not actually going through so you can understand what's going on. Nailbuster, who did the Pinup Popper or Pinup System software, that's his wiki on the right. Again, there's links to all of this in the description. But shout out to him. This is awesome software, works really well. And then we're going to get an 80 gigabyte torrent file from Arcade Oz Retro, and that's the link to the video where he posts that file. Again, I'm not associated with any of this. This is just how we get to the end. But there's a lot of great understanding between Terry Red and Nailbuster on how to do this. Just because you grab that torrent file, it's not something that you can just say, okay, now I can play 500 and something tables. You still got to set some things up because there's some dependencies on the computer. That's what we're going to go through. But it does make it really, really painless that you don't have to go out and individually download all the tables and that kind of stuff. So this comes up constantly with our cabinets is what hardware do I need? The couple points I'll put here, there's a ton of posts out there on hardware that you need for your computer to run this. Me personally, I'm running a Ryzen 5. 16 gigabytes of DDR4, a 500 gigabyte SSD. Make sure it's an SSD, in the M.2 format. Just don't do like an old school big, slow, 72 RPM hard drive. It's best to get some kind of SSD. And then a video card. A 1050 Ti is a really good one. It's more economical. I put a 2080 Super or 2080 Super in mine, which is probably overkill. But that's just kind of a high level. So again, you can just type minimum requirements visual pinball, and there's tons of information out there. So in the description, we'll have a torrent from Arcade Oz Retro. There's a link to his video that has the torrent file. If you're not familiar with torrents, essentially download something like uTorrent. You'll double click the link or add the link to the uTorrent. It'll download the 80 gig file. Make sure you got enough room wherever you're downloading it to not only download it, but also to extract it. And then I'll have a link to the Vpin installer pack. These are all the different things. So instead of having to go to all the different websites and pull it in, it's just one folder that'll follow along with the video. And finally, shameless plug again, check out our cabinets if you're interested in getting a cabinet. We have our new tabletop, our mid-size, and our full-size. So with that, let's get started and get this set up. Okay, so again, everything's in the description, direct links to download everything. I'm not going to waste time going to websites and downloading stuff, so we can just get through this. So the first thing we need to do is go into settings. I'll hit the home here. And what you want to do is go to update and security, Windows Defender, and make sure this real-time protection is turned off, because sometimes it'll grab files that you need. So you can just make sure that that's like that. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to download and install the 7-zip. So you can right click stuff and hit properties and just make sure, if there's a little checkbox here that says unblock, make sure and check that. So everything installs like it's supposed to. Okay, so got that installed. The next thing we're going to do is install the visual pinball. So this is VP10 or VPX. That 6 is the actual version on the site, which you'll see. So make sure and download the VP6. So I'm going to double click it and get that installing. Make sure you install it to the root of your C drive. So we'll install that there. And this is why we're doing a full install and not just copying over the files, so that way we get all the dependencies that we need. I don't want to install the Bing bar. Okay, so I installed DirectX. It said that my the next thing, I just keep nexting through, and you'll get, do you have a second monitor? So I do. So it registered the backglass. So what I want to do now is select which one is going to be my backglass, or my top one, my 32-inch in this case, and that's actually display 1, like it says here. And mine, you can change this later, so don't stress out on it. Mine's actually, if you don't know offhand, mine's 720, so I can hit display settings just to show you guys this. So you can see here, this is my backglass DMD and then my play field here. So I can click on it and hit advanced. So it's 1280 by 720 is what I have it set to. So I'll just do 1280 by 720 here. So 1280, 720, oops. 1280 by 720. Sorry, I'm doing this on the box. It's hard to see. Okay. All right, so good there. I can just close that for now. And Visual Pinball has been installed. Okay, so now we're going to update some files here. So you can see in my C folder I have Visual Pinball. First place I'm going to go is into Vpin MAME, and we're going to update that. So with the SAM build, we'll just grab those files, and we will drag those. Make sure and don't drag them into a folder, just drag them to the main folder here, and we'll replace everything. Now the next thing we're going to do is this DMDext. This is the 171 version, so again I'll have a link to that. Just so you know, in Vpin MAME it doesn't go into this folder here. It just goes into the main folder, so we'll copy that over and replace those files. So now we are going to install this direct output. And that's okay, don't worry about that error. Okay, so now that we have Visual Pinball installed with all the dependencies, that was key. That's why we went through that exercise instead of just copying over this torrent. So you downloaded the torrent. I have the link to that. I didn't have anything to do with this torrent. A guy posted it out there. It's pretty good, and I'll show you how to do some updates to it. But essentially, extract that out on your desktop or wherever, and you'll see that there's a Visual Pinball, Pinup System, Pinball X, and Future Pinball. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to grab all these files and drag them to my C root, and then hit yes on anything it wants to overwrite. So you can see here, replace files in the destination. Okay, so we did that. We overwrote some Visual Pinball stuff. Okay, so we're going to also update the backglass server. So I'm going to open that, go into my Visual Pinball, into my tables, copy those, and then overwrite. So the first thing I want to do is go in and fix that backglass server, because this would update to something different, because this is whatever that guy's settings were. So in my tables folder, and now you'll see I have all the tables and everything. If I just go down, I want to go to the B2S. I guess that didn't work. So you can see the B2S setup right there. So I can click that. In fact, I'll just do it that way. So you can see his settings were different than what mine are. So I'm just going to go back in and rechange these to the 1280 by 720 for me. Oops, my num lock was off. 720 like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and just re-register it just to make sure we're all good there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to set up some defaults for Vpin MAME. I'll have a link to this picture. But essentially go into your C drive, Visual Pinball, Vpin MAME, and find setup. Just the regular setup, not the 64 is fine. And then what we're going to do is set up defaults, and you can see here, just make it match the picture. So essentially we're going to do cabinet mode, and we're going to take off the internal DMD and do the external one. There's a big explanation for this. Again, go to Terry Red if you want to understand what everything does. I'm just getting it all to work here. So we're good there. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to quit, and then I'm going to go to, I'm actually going to open up my Visual Pinball. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to right click my taskbar, and right now I have a taskbar on all three monitors, and it'll just kind of drive you nuts. But you come down here, and for multiple displays, just turn that off, and then now I don't see it on the other ones. Sometimes that'll be ahead of the DMD and all that kind of stuff. It'll drive you nuts. So that's a quick way to get rid of that. Now it's only on the screen you guys are seeing, but not on the other two. So now I'm going to come in here and just run the Vpinball X. Don't worry about running a table right now. We're going to go into Preferences, Video Options, and again, just like before, I'll have a picture right here that you'll want to match. So for me, this one's a 4K monitor. Before I was on a 1080 monitor, so I'll go ahead and use the 4K. So I'll click that. I believe, turn off this ball trail. I believe that's all I need to do. I guess. There you go. I'll click the cabinet button there and then hit OK. Okay, so I went ahead and I plugged in my USB encoder for my buttons. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Control Panel, and then Hardware and Sound, Devices and Printers, and then Find It. I'm going to right click, Game Controller Settings. Get you a piece of paper and a pen and just start writing these down. So you'd have your left trigger, your left nudge, and so forth and so forth. But as you press them, make sure everything's working how you expect. Mark the number of where it's located because it makes this next part easier. So in Visual Pinball, I still have that open. We're going to go to Preferences and then Configure Keys. Don't let this freak you out. It's really simple. So for my left flipper, all I'm going to do is hit this down arrow, select whatever button that was on my little sheet. My right flipper, select what button that was. Just go through and do all of these, and you'll be good. The one thing I'll say is if you have little kids that are going to play this nudge button will drive you nuts. So there's two buttons on the side. One's your flipper and one's your nudge. You might not even set that. It'll save you a lot of headache because a lot of little kids will get there and they'll just start slapping both the buttons and it'll tilt the games constantly and it'll drive you crazy. If adults are going to play it, you're good with the nudge. If you're going to have a bunch of kids, just for the headache, I wouldn't mess with it. So once you have that set, just click OK. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run a table and just see what kind of chaos we get that we need to clean up. So I'm going to hit Tables, and I'm going to run 24 because I know that that's a good one. Essentially in this folder you'll see you'll have the table and then also the B2S, which is the backglass, the associated backglass. So I'm just going to double click that. We'll let it boot up and see what happens. So one issue I have is the backglass is the wrong direction, so I need to orientate that around. The other issue, or I'm sorry, the play field's the wrong way. The other issue is my backglass is showing up on where I want my DMD instead of here. So let's talk through a couple things. So one is the first thing I want to do too is make sure that I can find my main DMD. Sometimes it's hard, just look around on the table to find it. And this is important here, but I'm going to make it bigger and then I'm going to actually drag it to the proper spot. Okay, so I drug it up and I made it fill up half of this screen. I wanted to fill up half the screen on the bottom of the DMD. So let's work on fixing the other issues. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, click on the table, hit Q to quit, push the right arrow key to go down to quit to editor, and I'm going to quit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and just go ahead and flip my display around right here to landscape flipped. Okay, so I changed the orientation of my main playfield. The next thing I'm going to do is, since the backglass just isn't right, I'm going to go back into the Visual Pinball Tables B2S setup, and I'm going to select a different one here. Even though this says it's display 1 in Windows, it's going on display 2, so I would suggest just changing those until it shows up to what you want it to be. So I'm going to try display 3, and then I'm going to relaunch the table, and I'll show you guys on another camera here. Okay, so now I have the orientations correct in my cabinet, and the backglass is on the proper screen. One thing I'll say is since I'm going to use the DMD and I already have speakers in my unit, I don't need this. I don't know if I can get my mouse all the way over there and do this camera too. But I don't need that grill. I'm going to show you a quick way to get rid of that. So let's quit out here. And let's go back into that B2S setup. This doesn't make any sense, but that's why this is difficult to set up sometimes. If I go in here and I change this offset right here to 1, that should get rid of all of those grills, so I don't have to go through individually and do it all. Let's take a look. So you can see that booted up. And then now the grill's gone, so it's exactly how I want my backglass to go. So what I'm going to do now is my DMD is up here in the corner, but I'm going to try to cheat this thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press F1 on my keyboard, and that's going to bring up these the defaults. And real quick, I'm going to go ahead and hit Show DMD to show the standard one, and I'll show you why in a minute. So I think I can hit F3, and it should relaunch. And it's kind of hard sometimes to find your DMD display. So I'm going to right click that DMD and show the window border. That'll allow me to move it. I can also show the title so it's a little easier to move. But what I'm going to do now that I have access to that is I'm going to drag and make it the size I need and put it where I need it so I can get the exact location of where I want. So I'm going to drag this on this other screen. I'll show you guys that in a minute. So you can see here I drug it on my second screen, and I'm only going to use half of this screen, and I'll show you why later because we're going to fill this full of topper art. But right now that's right where I want to make sure it's not bleeding over onto another screen somewhere, but it's right about halfway full of that screen. And then I'm just going to right click it and take off those titles and borders and then readjust it right where I need to be. So now that that's done, you can see I have another DMD on this camera. This is the one we're actually going to use. That other one is the standard one, but just to show you guys. Okay, so now we've set that DVD where we want for the game 24. What we're going to do is go into regedit, so regedit, and essentially this is there's a place in the registry that tells you where you just set that DMD. So the X and Y coordinates on how it gets to the second screen, and then also the width and the height. So essentially if you come in here, I'm going to show you guys. So go into HKey current user, software, freeware, visual pin MAME, and you'll see here 24. because that's the game that we played. So look for that one. And what you're going to do is you're going to find these 4 values: the DMD position X, the DMD position Y, and then the DMD underscore height and width. And essentially what you'll do is write each one of those down exactly how it is. Double click it. Do not write the hexadecimal. Write the decimal here. So my DMD underscore position underscore X is going to be 3833. So I'm going to do that for all 4 of those. Then I'm going to go into the default, and I went ahead and created 3 of them. So you'll see here the DMD height is there, and I put my value in under decimal. You'll click decimal, put it in. The X position, Y position. I didn't do the width just so you guys can see it. So right click, new, D word, and this one's going to be DMD underscore width. I'm going to press enter to bring it up. Hit decimal. So if you type in the value here and you're on hexadecimal, it's not going to be right. Make sure it's on decimal. And mine's 1376. So what I did is essentially now every game I boot up, that DMD is going to go to that spot. And also I know where that DMD is for a little bit fancier one we'll set in a minute. So what I'm going to do to show you guys here is I'm actually going to open a different table. And let's just open, so we'll pick a new game here. We'll do Attack from Mars. I'll go ahead and hit play. So you can see there I have my values written down to where it goes on that screen. But you can see here as this game boots up, I don't have my grill because I added that one, and then also my DMD automatically went in the correct location that I wanted. So I know that that location's correct, and now we can fix some other stuff here. We're getting pretty close. Okay, so I'm going to quit out of editor. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come in and fix this other DMD now that we know those locations. So I'm going to go into my Visual Pinball Vpin MAME in this DMD device. I'm going to right click it. I suggest downloading Notepad++. Just type in Notepad with a ++ and you'll get it. Make sure this down at the bottom, this pinup is true. False, false, false. All these DMDs are false because I'm not using a real DMD. Here's the virtual DMD here. It's saying use registry value true, so it could work. But I'll go ahead and type these values in here as well. So my Y was 419. Oh, that was my X. My X was 3833. My Y was 419. My width was 1376. And my height was 347. So let's go ahead and save that. Let's relaunch the table and just take a quick look. I still have both DMDs turned on in the settings right now. So we'll take a look. We know our standard DMD is correct. Let's see if our other one does as well. Okay, so that game booted up. My DMD is correct. What I want to do here is I'm just going to hit Alt-Tab. That looks pretty good, but I'm going to go ahead and select the table, and I just want to test something real quick. I'm going to push F1. Oh, it's already set to use external DMD by default because I was on a new game. That's why. So I'm good here. That's actually the correct DMD. So I'm all set. Once I put those settings in the registry, now I'm good. So now technically this is all playable. I've set it up. It's ready to play, but I want to go ahead and get the topper videos, show you guys how to do that so it can be a little flashier. The one thing I'll say too, here, and I'll jump off that camera. The one thing I'll say here too, so yeah, so basically we're in good shape. We're done. We could play all we want to now on the table. One thing I would do is right click here, personalize. This just makes it look a lot better. And change your background to solid black. That way it just always looks great. Coming in and make sure nothing's on one of the other screens, just this top screen right there. So if I press play, that'll be blacked out. It'll look just like the DMD monitor. So we're in good shape. At this point, this thing's playable. If I play any game, everything's set to default. The backglass will be correct. The DMD location will be correct. I can play the table. I've already set up the controls. We're good to go. So now I'm going to move up onto the pinup player and show you guys how that works. Okay, so now we have Visual Pinball up, working, our controls configured, everything like that. So now what we're going to do is get the pinup player working. That's going to allow for me to throw really fancy graphics onto certain games that are there essentially. So it'll work within Visual Pinball. You don't even need a front end to do that. So let's get that set up. So under C, I'm going to go into the pinup system. And then I'm going to go down to where it says pinup player register, right click, run as administrator. Here essentially I need to set up a few things. So I'm going to show this on my other screen, but the first thing's the topper. And let me get the other screen set up here. So the topper is going to be this spot right here at the top of the DMD. So what I'm going to do, if I can find my mouse here, is I can actually just go over here and stretch that to how I need. I could go ahead and hit any of these buttons. So I'll hit the button that says center. I don't know if you guys can see that. Or I can hit the one that says full screen. That'll fill up the screen. But what I want to do here is grab the bottom and I want to pull it up to where it's going to be right over my DMD. Just like that. And I have it set to always on. The next thing I'm going to do is click DMD. The same thing here. If it gives this message, just hit yes. It'll just kind of fix it for you. So I'm going to scroll over and I'm going to adjust the DMD about how I have my other one set. I can fix this later if I need to a little bit. So my backglass, so you can see when I push it, it shows down here. So I'm actually going to drag that to the proper screen and hit full screen. So that's where I want it. If it brings up that message, just hit yes. So now I'm good. You can press refresh video at any time. It'll show you where the video is going to play. And then finally my playfield. And the same thing. I'm just going to hit full screen here. And it popped up. So I can hit Alt Tab to get back to my player display. So we're all good there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Save Settings. And exit. Okay, so now everything would be working, but if you want to go ahead and get the fancier packs that go with this pop-up player, you want to get what they call pup-packs. So go to vpinball.com, create an account, it's free. This torrent doesn't have the fancier packs, so you'll have to get these. There's not a lot available, maybe 20 or 30 that's worth your time. But since you go to downloads, go to pup-packs, get the ones for VPX, which most of these are. I'm going to test this with Jurassic Park. So you'll click that, and essentially once you're logged in, you'll be able to scroll down to the bottom here. If there's any notes, like installation notes, you can read all that stuff here. But you can just hit download on all the zip files. So I didn't want you guys to wait, so I went ahead and downloaded that. So you can see here, again, right click it, go to properties. Make sure there's not a box down here at the bottom that says unblock. If so, check that so it's unblocked. I'm going to open this with 7-zip. Just open the archive. You can see here I have a couple options in this download. I'm going to do the 3 screen because that's what I got. So I'll just double click that. It'll open up. This is the same name as the ROM, but what we're going to do is go into our pinup system. And this is where you put everything in your pup videos. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this over and then overwrite anything that's there if it's there. So I'll replace those. And now what we're going to do is open up Visual Pinball to test this. And then we're going to look up Jurassic Park. We'll double click that. You can see when it boots up, it's got the pup-pack instead of just the normal backglass. So as the game's booting up there, you can see it's got an intro video. So right now it's testing, booting up like the actual pinball would have. And now it's ready, you can see there with the credits. Press start, so I can press start. You can see here. So that's the start. It's going to pop the ball out right there. So you guys just heard that. So now I can just push the launch button, start hitting the flippers. Alright, so go ahead and exit out of that. Okay, so let's quickly get the pinup system installed. But before we do that, just real quick on the pup-packs, when you go in your tables folder, you'll have all these B2S files and then your table. On any table you download a pup-pack for, make sure this B2S is not in your tables folder. What I did is I just created a folder, cut it here, paste it there, because if not, this will compete with your pup-packs. There's some of them that use them and it'll say it in the description when you download the pup-pack, but if not, cut and paste that into a different folder so that way they don't interfere with each other. So now let's go into our pinup system, and we're going to scroll down and do the pinup popper register.bat. So go ahead and run that. It'll make sure, it should already have your display set up because we've already set up the popper. So run that and you're good. And then I'm just going to show you a little bit of the setup here. So there's a games manager in here. When I click that, this should already be populated from the torrent, but this is where you would add new games, put information in. You can create a playlist. I'm going to create one that just has all of the 20 or so tables that have the pup-packs on them, so that way you have the real fancy tables in a separate menu, but you can set up playlists here. Your media manager, you can come in, and then you can hit this little world here, and then you can download. So this is what the interface in the front end would look like, not the table itself. So this is, as you flip through, this is what you would see here before you boot into the actual game. But what I really want to show is go to the popper setup and then controller setup. And here you can just set all the items in a row. So essentially what you'll do here is you push a button, it'll say, okay, what button do you want for exit emulators? You push that on your cab. It'll go to the next one. You can skip, you can cancel, whatever you want to do, but you go down here and you'll set all the joystick or the encoder codes for what each button does. So for instance, game next would be your right flipper, game prior would be your left flipper, so on and so on. The only catch here is on exit emulators and system menu, you want to have those set as the same button. So from here I could exit and go ahead and launch the front end, or in the future you can just run the Windows startup.bat. That'll start it. You also could copy this and paste it into your Windows startup folder. If you did that, as your computer boots up, it'll automatically go into the popper front end, and you wouldn't have to manually click anything. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So you can see this is the actual front end. So this is what you can boot into. I can control it with my flippers since I set up the controls. So I can go to Visual Pinball. I'll press my start button. It'll go in, and now you can see all the tables are set up. Some of them have nicer interfaces depending on if you have a pup-pack set up for it, as you can see there on 24. I'll go ahead and start this table. There you go, I didn't hit the button all the way. So you can see a lot of them will have loading screens. That's what the loading screen looks like. So it's opening Visual Pinball in the background. And so you can see the table booted up here. And then I'll just use my Visual Pinball controls like I did. So I have my coin here. So you can see it's adding money. My start key here.
The following takes place between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m.
And then I can launch my ball and play the table. So you can see I'm good there. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out. You can see see I'm back at the main interface where I can continue to swap through tables here. So that's it. That's all I'm going to do for this video. I will do more in a future video and show a little bit more. But this is the quick guide just to get you set up and playing. I haven't seen anything like this on the internet, so this should help a lot of you guys get this stuff set up. So make sure and like the video. Visit GameRoomSolutions.com, and thanks.